Every day, it's quietly building a model of who you are based on what you actually do. Not what you intend to do, not what you post online, what you do. Skip your alarm and hit snooze for the 10th day straight, and your brain updates its model. This person doesn't follow through. Show up for a 10-minute walk on a day you didn't feel like it, and your brain updates the model again. This person follows through, even when it's hard. That model has a name in psychology, self-efficacy, and it's one of the strongest predictors of mood, resilience, and long-term happiness that researchers have identified. It's not the same as confidence. Confidence is a feeling. Self-efficacy is closer to a verdict your brain reaches based on a track record. Most self-improvement content treats small habits as isolated hacks. Do this for your dopamine. Do that for your cortisol. What almost nobody points out is that every single one of those small habits is also, quietly, evidence being submitted to that internal verdict. Everything seemed like a list of separate tricks, until you notice they're all doing the same underlying job. Look at the habits that show up again and again across happiness research. A short morning pause instead of grabbing your phone. A few seconds spent noticing something good instead of scanning for problems. A short burst of movement instead of staying still. On the surface, these look like they're targeting 3 different systems: attention, mood, and physiology. But zoom out, and each one has the exact same shape. A small moment where you could default to the automatic, easier behavior, and you choose the harder, more deliberate one instead. That choice is the evidence. Not the walk itself, not the 2 minutes of quiet. The choosing. This is why so many people who go all in on habit trackers, big morning routines, and dramatic 5 a.m. wake-up challenges burn out within 2 weeks. They're trying to submit 10 pieces of evidence a day to a brain that spent years collecting evidence of the opposite, that they don't follow through. The brain doesn't believe a sudden flood of new behavior. It believes small, repeated, low-friction proof. And here's where it gets interesting, because this reframes something that shows up in every version of this 7 habits format. The habit of noticing small wins, or taking a gratitude snapshot, or asking, what did I do right today? Every source treats that as a mood booster. It's actually closer to a court reporter, logging evidence for the case your brain is building about who you are. So, if noticing small wins is the evidence logging habit, what's the habit that actually generates new evidence? This is where the identity statement, the "I am the kind of person who takes" line that keeps showing up as the supposed finale, actually earns its place. But not for the reason it's usually given. Saying a sentence to yourself doesn't change your brain because the sentence is powerful. Words alone don't move self-efficacy. Outcomes do. What the sentence actually does is set a standard your next action gets measured against. Say, I'm the kind of person who takes care of my happiness right before you decide whether to check your phone or take the 2-minute pause. And you've just created a moment where your behavior either confirms or contradicts what you claimed. That contradiction is uncomfortable, and your brain, uncomfortable with contradiction, tends to resolve it by acting in line with the statement, which then becomes the new evidence. Ask yourself this: if the sentence itself did the work, you'd expect affirmations alone to reliably change people's lives. They don't, and there's a well-documented reason. Decades of research on generic self-affirmation shows it mostly helps people who already feel reasonably good about themselves, and does very little on its own for people who don't. The identity statement in this context isn't decoration. It's a trigger, placed right before a real decision, so the decision becomes the evidence. This is also why habits like fixing your environment, doing a nightly brain dump, or protecting 15 screen-free minutes matter. Not because clutter or notifications directly cause unhappiness, but because every time you follow through on a small commitment to yourself, under conditions where it would have been easier not to, you're casting another vote in the same direction.
Here's the full picture once you put it together. The world was told happiness comes from 7 separate habits. A morning routine here, some gratitude there, a bit of movement, a bit of quiet, and a closing affirmation to seal it all in. The reality is, those 7 habits are one mechanism wearing 7 different outfits. Small, repeated, low-friction proof that you follow through, feeding a running verdict your brain keeps about who you are. That's why the order barely matters, and it's why different creators can list totally different sets of habits and still be describing the same underlying process. The 2-minute pause, the 10-minute walk, the 1 compliment a day, the quiet 5 minutes before bed, none of them are magic on their own. What's doing the work is that each one is a small, winnable moment where you show your own brain evidence instead of just telling it a story. For years, self-improvement content has framed this as willpower or mindset or vibes. It isn't. It's closer to a court case your brain runs on you every single day, and most people never realize they're allowed to control the evidence.
This isn't just an interesting psychology fact. It changes how you should actually use any habit list you come across, including this one. Stop asking, which 7 habits should I copy exactly? Start asking, which small, doable action, repeated daily, would be the strongest piece of evidence that I follow through on my own happiness? For some people, that's a 2-minute pause before the phone comes out. For someone else, it's a 10-minute walk on the days they least feel like it. The specific habit is almost irrelevant. What matters is picking something small enough to actually do every day and treating every single completion as a deposit in an account your brain is always checking. Most people will keep chasing new habit lists, new morning routines, new 7-step formulas, without ever knowing why the ones that stick. Now you know what's actually happening underneath. That's not luck. That's mechanism.
So the next time you see a list of 7 happiness habits, you won't just be collecting another checklist. You'll be looking for evidence-generating moments. If this reframed something for you, that's worth passing on to someone who's stuck on habit lists that never seem to stick. Next time, we go deeper into why some evidence counts more than others to your brain, and it's not the habit you'd expect.